Quick, take cover! Hello and welcome to Splat Talk, where I let my man Smack talk about stuff related to Splatoon in general. Today I'll be reviewing over every weapon in Splatoon 2 featuring a splash wall as its sub-weapon and rank them based on how they can use it and how it is useful to them. Starting off with Kensa Gal 52 with Splash Wall and Booyable. I'm starting with this weapon because it's one of the weapons with the most straightforward use of Splash Wall ever since Splatoon 1. When you confront the enemy, you throw the wall and you shoot from behind, with the hopes of taking down the enemy. This weapon might be also the easiest weapon to use Splash Wall with in Splatoon 2 because the main weapon itself is suited more towards frontline and midline position with its 2-shot kill potential and moderate fire rate, and the Splash Wall gives it protection from direct enemy fire that can be deployed instantly. Booyable is a special that complements the Kensa Gal 52 on its offensive by giving it the means of dispersing the enemy from its position, whether they are taken down in the process or not, making him rethink about his strategy when they face this weapon. I recommend using some main power-up as it helps increasing the precision of this weapon because it has a base RNG that is not very acceptable in my opinion. The rather low fire rate does not play in its favor in getting the shots even when aiming straight at the enemy, so main power-up compensates for it on the precision of the weapon. Because you're bound to stay longer on the front line uncovered, I suggest a bit of in-game savior main will help in shooting for a longer time with your main weapon. You can also use some run speed up if you need to strafe and take down the new opponent. Finally, you might also need to use some quick respawn on this weapon, much like every other Slayer weapon that uses it in order to quickly get back into action. Gal 96 Deco is similar in use compared to its little cousin, and yet it has enough differences to distinct itself from the Kensa Gal 52. First, it has longer range. Second, lower fire rate. Even though Gal 52's fire rate is very low in comparison to other shooter weapons, second lowest but not too far from Splatshot Pro, it is still pretty acceptable and forgiving, but it's even less the case for Gal 96 Deco. Plus, main power-up does not reduce RNG on this weapon in comparison, so you have to deal with a very horrendous RNG no matter what on this weapon. But I think it is still a very powerful weapon, because the longer range allows for more possibilities with this weapon. You just put the wall and shoot at the enemy that is in a position that Kensa Gal 52 cannot reach, and if you have trouble aiming at the enemy or he's closing in from behind, then let the splashdown do the talking. You can use Ink Saver Main and Quick Respawn in the same fashion as well, but because you're more bound to be taken down as well, I suggest you'd use Comeback too. If you want to use the strategy of the super jumping splashdown, then I recommend using some quick super jump as well. This will ensure more optimal movement when you do plan on using super jump more often, and also stealth jump in addition so as not to get spotted by the enemy directly, unless it's close to use to the jumping location. There are people that use main power-up on this weapon to increase the damage output just to ensure finishing the enemy more quickly, but with a base damage of 62 per shots, I don't mind not using this ability. I don't have use for it. But for Gluga Duelist Deco, I do. The base damage on this weapon is 35 per shots and 52.5 when shooting after rolling. It's a bit horrendous for this weapon because of its fire rate, which is similar to Gal 52, because if you do not manage to finish quickly your opponent, it might take more than 3 shots to take him down since he'll have recovered a bit while fleeing in his ing. Some main power-up will increase its damage output and help this weapon stand out a little better compared to weapons with similar characteristics, like Splatshot Pro. Although, keep in mind that you will take longer to move again after rolling with this weapon than any other dually weapon. But if it's troublesome, then activate Bowler and roll away safely. Or you can surprise attack the enemy by blowing from behind. Also, a bunch of Ink Saver Main is advised on this weapon because of rolling. Splash Wall works surprisingly well on this weapon, so don't hesitate using it. Let's just say if you have a little trouble with Gal 96 Deco, then you might want to try this one. It works in the same way, but might be more beginner friendly in my opinion. Also, give last ditch effort a try on this weapon sometime. Chargers are a strange case with Splash Walls in Splatoon 1, and this Firefin Splat Charger is no exception. Admittedly, people will prefer any other charger options for backline and sometimes midline, but somehow this charger draws the line between both. You can hide behind the wall in order to focus on your aiming, and you can sometimes go on the front line with it. But if aiming is not second nature to you, then you can retreat and throw a splash wall to take cover from the enemy while repositioning. I'd say the unscoped version works better than the scope version with a wall because, well, you have this tunnel vision with the scope that can help you in aiming at the cost of surrounding awareness. Not only that, but through the scope you can barely see a thing if you're hiding behind the splash wall. You can also store your charge with the unscoped version, which is why I think that the unscoped version works better on midline than the scoped variant. But at least you have a little more range with the scoped variant. Just pick up some ink saver main and ink recovery so you can shoot more with this weapon. And if you have trouble carrying your team and the objective, then you should probably go for last ditch effort, as it does both jobs very well from the moment your enemy is halfway through the completion of the objective. And also make sure to pick up some abilities revolving around your special saver, special charge up, special duration up, because chances are this suction bomb launcher might come in handy in crucial situations on the battlefield. Wall is pretty much useless for Flinksa Roller. Best served to other teammates than self, let alone any other weapon than the roll class. However, you do not want to neglect Splat Bomb Launcher as an offensive and retaliation tactic. You can push the enemy away easily with the Splat Bomb Rush. I mean, you can shield enemy fire with Splash Roll, but it does not work well for a roller, especially Flinksa and its slow vertical flick. Avoid using Splash Roll 90% of the time, or else avoid using this weapon, unless you play Splash Zones or Clam Blitz. These are the two modes where this weapon shines the most in my opinion. Wall blocks the enemy and Splat Bomb Launcher can recap the zone and push the enemy away from both the zones and the Clam Basket, whether it's yours or theirs. There are many gear options to work with this weapon. The first options that come directly in mind, however, are about ink efficiency, like ink saver main, ink recovery, or last ditch effort. Remember, now that last ditch effort activates when the enemy reaches 50 in the progression of the objective. This might work well with this weapon if you're struggling to push the enemy away and need ink, and it leaves more space to work with other abilities like quick respawn. Since you're more vulnerable in some occasions with Flinksa, you can come back into battle more quickly with quick respawn if you die too often. Main power-up increases damage output on this weapon. Since the damage you deal to an opponent is very uneven with rollers, main power-up can facilitate your life in getting kills. At least, when I say you do not want to neglect Splat Bomb Launcher, I mean it. You have to use special charge up to get your bomb launcher ready quickly, and special power up to extend the duration of that bomb launcher so you can fire up more bombs. You can also use special saver as well if you're willing to conserve some of the special gauge, but the other abilities might be more useful than this one. Besides that, Splash Wall is useless on this weapon. However, Splash Wall works surprisingly better on Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. I thought the range of this weapon to be overkill for Splash Wall and its fire rate to be inadequate, but hey, it's perhaps best to have too much range than none for that matter. Enemies that want to take you down from afar and you wish to have protection while having the means to take them down from where you stand. Is this something the Flinksa Roller is made for? No, not as much as Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. Also, you can get extra defense for you and your team with ink armor and make life a little easier for everyone. That being said, due to the nature of the weapon, it's probably best to stay in midline or even backline, but when you need to push further the enemy away and push further the objective for your team, this weapon might do the job on all modes as well. Some abilities you can use on this weapon are Special Saver and Special Charge Up, for ink armor of course, and any ability that involves ink efficiency, most notably ink saver main, ink recovery, and last ditch effort. You can also use some main power up since it decreases the RNG of shots in midair and increases the explosion radius of rapid blasters. Pretty useful indeed. Splash Wall with Tentasaur Umbrella is kinda overkill. You already have a powerful shield to go with your main weapon. You fire Tentabrella, deploy shield and shoot from behind while progressing. Why do you need Splash Wall then? Turns out if you're staying on a more stationary position, then Splash Wall might still be useful with Tentasaur Umbrella, but you do not want to also deploy shield afterwards, or else you have no more ink to fire this weapon. Literally. You will need to pack some ink saver main and sub to cope for both problems. You may also put on last ditch effort too, but only if you're willing to use other abilities with this weapon as well. You might also want to use some swim speed up too, because it's a heavy weapon, and heavy weapons make you slower in this game. Eliter 4K, Hydra Splatling, Dynamo Roller, these are no exceptions either. If you move a lot around the map with heavy weapons, you will need swim speed up. You can also use some special charge up too, but I don't find the curling bomb launcher to be nearly as effective as any other bomb launchers. Perhaps you're best left to use the other two Tentabrellas than this one, since you can still do your job without a Splash Wall on Tentabrella, plus the other Tentas have better kits anyway. Splash Wall has always been great with a slosher in Splatoon 1, but the Blobber is no conventional slosher. It fires 4 bubbles at each slush that bounce up to 3 times on the ground. Because each bubble deals 30 of damage, you can technically splat your opponent in one slush, but the hitbox is not the same as the slosher's shots. I mean regular slosher at all. Regular circle like for slosher, straight line for Blobber. You can also get creative with this weapon by having all your bubbles go in a different direction by slightly moving the Blobber while firing it, and also make your shots bounce on walls. Chances are many of your shots might end up getting lost and not reaching the enemy because not only the way the weapon works, but also because the shots don't travel really fast. Splash Wall helps in protecting you so you can focus on aiming at the enemy instead of running away from him. It's not as helpless on the mid line and front line as a charger, or even flinks a roller maybe, but you can find yourself in some sticky situations like struggling to hit your enemy or being short in ink. For that again, you will need some ink saver main and ink recovery. You can also work with last ditch effort, it works well. You will probably also need special charge up because Ink Storm is a great pressure tool that can be used indefinitely in many situations, and you will probably need a lot of Ink Storms on the battlefield. What I said about focusing on aim after deploying wall instead of running away especially applies to Kensa L3 and Cherry H3 nozzle noses. These weapons fire salvos of 3 shots at a time. L3 has a base damage of 30 and H3 has a base damage of 41, making the L3 a 4-shot kill weapon and the H3 a 3-shot kill. Plus, H3 has a slightly longer range than L3. However, the delay before firing the weapon again is much longer on H3 than L3. It all depends on whether you want more strength or better mobility, ink coverage and fire rate. I know that Splash Wall has made the Cherry H3 stand out in Splatoon 1 and this should be no exceptions for both nozzle noses in Splatoon 2. Cherry H3 can be seen as a more defensive option since you can use the bubbles of the bubble blower to block enemy shots, cover a large zone into your ink or take out hidden or out of reach enemies after blowing up the bubbles, and use the wall to focus more on aiming at the enemy. Since the fire rate of Kensa L3 is much faster overall, missing your shots is more forgivable on Kensa L3, but that does not mean you can let down your aim, as being a 4-shot kill weapon can lead to confusion when it comes to take down the enemy. But this can be fixed once you bring out the Ultra Stamp and let it do the talking. Both weapons will benefit from using main power-up, as it increases damage output on both. While you can close in on a 2-shot potential with H3, your life will be much easier with main power-up on L3 since you can take down the enemy in 3 shots more consistently, given that the enemy has already taken hits. You can also use special power-up on Cherry H3 as it will make bubbles bigger, but don't use too much, because first, special power-up has been buffed on Bubble Blower, and second, because Cherry H3 might have a hard time popping those bubbles due to its problematic delay between each salvo of 3 shots. You might want to use Object Shredder for this end as well. You can also use Ink Saver main, Ink Recovery, Last Ditch Effort to sustain your ink consumption as well. Everything I said about abilities on Cherry H3 can also apply to the Kensa L3 as well, except special power-up. There's not a lot of interest using it for Ultra Stamp, but Object Shredder can still be useful for breaking other objects such as Sprinkler, Enemy Splash Wall, Rainmaker Shield. Personally, Last Ditch Effort is good enough for me. I don't need to use Ink Saver main or Ink Recovery when I'm equipped with Last Ditch Effort with Kensa L3, and that allows me to use other abilities I might need as well, such as Swim Speed Up or even a bit of Run Speed Up. Or use some Quick Response sometimes, because why not? Overall, the Cherry H3 can be very powerful, but is only as powerful as your aim and reaction time. Otherwise, use Kensa L3 for a more beginner-friendly nozzle nose experience. Unless you prefer playing more aggressively, which you can do with this one. Squeezer is a very polyvalent weapon, and by that I mean its first variant with Splash Wall and Stingray. It has capabilities in both short and long range, since the first shot has a range equivalent to Cherry H3, and all subsequent shots have the range of Splash Shot and Gal 52, only to quote them. It's a jack of all trades, but a master in none. The RNG of short range mode is equivalent, albeit very slightly worse, than Splatter Shot, while you might confuse the range of long range shots by that of Jet Squelcher when it's situated right below this weapon. Not only that, but a long range mode on this weapon involves using tap shots to fire only the first shot of this weapon. This means you might lose some focus on aiming on this weapon because of mashing the fire button with your finger. But you can train this and overcome this issue with enough perseverance. And if you feel threatened when the enemy is coming close to you, just remember that you can still use this weapon as if it was a splatter shot, albeit slightly weaker. Only then, after understanding all of this, you will unlock the true potential of this weapon and make it work with its killer set of sub and special. Splash Wall to counter enemy fire from up close and far away, Stingray to take the enemy down from afar, possibilities on both front, mid and back line. This weapon has a lot of potential, I believe. Speaking of abilities, you can also use Ink Saver main and Last Ditch Effort. It works well on this weapon. Maybe Ink Saver main works more on this one because you always need to be ink efficient on firing this weapon, and because the ink consumption of tap shots has been reduced, it makes this weapon's life easier with Ink Saver main than Last Ditch Effort. Also, you can use some special power-up to extend the duration of Stingray. You may also want to use some main power-up to increase damage output, as you can even do a 3-shot kill with short range mode. Because the first shot has a base damage of 38, and all subsequent shots have a base damage of 30, and with main power up, connecting the first shots with 2 subsequent shots on the enemy will make it a 3-shot kill. Or you can use a bit more, just to close in on the 3-shot kill potential even if you don't hit the first shot. And finally, Heavy Splatling Deco. It has the same kit as Cherry H3, Splash Wall and Bubble Blower. The Heavy Splatling was made for the backline, but with the Splash Wall you can even progress in the mid line and push away the enemy as you unload your weapon on them from behind the wall and let the range of your weapon and the bubbles do the talking. Simple. Since the damage output on this weapon was reduced from 32 to 30 as of version 4.8.0, your best option will be to use Object Shredder to pop up your bubbles more easily, since main power-up extends the duration of unloading the Splatling after charging it instead of increasing its damage output. Again, you can use some special power-up, but not too much. Actually, I used a pure of special power-up without looking at what gear I put on, and it actually worked very nicely. So I believe you can go up to this much special power-up, but not more, and not without Object Shredder. You put on Ink Saver main if you want to fire this weapon even more. Run speed up is also recommended for increasing walk speed while firing your weapon. It has basically the same purpose as for Kensa Gal 52. Last ditch effort can also be effective on this weapon. It's up to you to see what suits better for you while using this weapon. So in the end, this is pretty much my list of the best weapons with a Splash Wall. Obviously I put Flinxa Roller in last because Splash Wall is pretty much useless with this weapon. Then comes the Tentasaurella Umbrella here because even though the wall works better with this weapon than Flinxa Roller, it does not need another wall, and you're better off with the other Tentambrella kits. I could pretty much say the same for Firefin Splat Scope, but the unscoped variant is 3 places upper because of the map awareness you gain from ditching the scope. By that I mean there's this tunnel vision from the scope while you can still check on your surroundings without the scope. And Splash Wall covers your view, which is definitely not helping the scoped variant. And you can store your charge in squid form with the unscoped variant as well. Above the Firefin Splatter Scope we have the Bloblobber. The wall does not help the main weapon enough, so it's up to you to make the main weapon work your way. That being said, it is still more helpful to the Bloblobber than the Firefin Splatter Scope. But Splash Wall helps Rapid Blaster Pro Deco a little more in doing its job, more so than both the Bloblobber and Firefin Splat Charger. Cherry H3 seems very potent, but is undermined by the delay between each salvo of 3 shots. This is essentially what keeps this weapon from being placed higher on the list. You can't do whatever you want. You have to stay composed in your aiming, your positioning and your timing with this weapon. But this is what the Splash Wall is made for. Cover behind and take aim. Squeezer is kinda the same as H3 in some regards, but less bad because long range tap shots allow for a faster fire rate. And at least with its short range mode, this weapon has better ink coverage that allows for more mobility on this weapon, which is convenient while moving in and out of enemy territory. Despite the nerf, I believe Heavy Splatling Deco is still a strong weapon. You nerf its damage output, but the wall deploys faster now in compensation, and I think it's worth the trade-off. Despite being similar, Kansa 3 is 3 spots above Cherry H3 because even if it has a lower damage output and slightly lower but still equivalent range, everything else is pretty much better with this weapon. Shorter delay between 3 shot salvos, which make for faster fire rate, more ink coverage and more mobility. It shows how critical sometimes the difference between power and the combination of fire rate, ink coverage and mobility is. In the end, I believe the Glugia Duelist Deco, Gal 96 Deco and Kensa Gal 52 to be the best weapons with a Splash Wall. Glugia Duelist Deco has its shortcomings, some of which can be worked out with the right gear set, but is a weapon that works really great with a Splash Wall, and Kensa Gal 52 and Gal 96 Deco still prove that Splash Wall works still great on these weapons even since Splatoon 1, although there was no Tony Kensa in Splatoon 1 and Splash Wall was on the vanilla Gal 52 this time around. Gal 96 Deco is placed above Glugia Duelist Deco. Although the latter is easier to use, more consistent in getting kills and more mobile, Gal 96 Deco has much more options to choose from to operate on the battlefield. Even though it has bad RNG, it feels satisfying and gratifying to land those 2 hits with this weapon with that much range. Not to mention, Splashdown solves problems more quickly than Baller. Again, Kensa Gal 52 is above Gal 96 Deco and pretty much any other weapon with a Splash Wall in Splatoon 2, as it trades its range and damage output for more mobility, faster fire rate and better ink coverage. But it's still a 2-shot kill just like Gal 96 Deco, and I love it. Gal 52 already works good with that Splash Wall and it works even better with Splash Wall. Most straightforward use, safe option, gets kills very fast, very mobile weapon, powerful special. This weapon has it all. Is there still any other reason not to believe Gal 52 is the best weapon with a Splash Wall since Splatoon 1? For me, I don't think so. That's why I put it number 1 on this list, because I believe it is the best weapon with a splash wall in Splatoon 2. And that's pretty much it. I decided to make this video since the release of version 4.8.0, because now that splash wall deploys 5 frames faster, I believe it will become more prominent in the meta. Compared to before, you can see that it indeed deploys faster. If you want to tell me what's your favorite weapon with a splash wall or submit your ideas for another subject I can Splat Talk about, then feel free to write it in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to give a like to this video and follow me on YouTube, Twitter and Twitch, links in the description below for more Splatoon content and other gaming stuff. This was Sonic, and I'll see you next time. Bye!